Welcome back to Cobra's Mini Projects. Today we're going to be resurfacing my in-laws deck. And if you look down, you can see when this was built, there was some interesting cuts and different angles and all kinds of funny stuff going on. They got it screwed down. I noticed they got a Phillips here, a square head there. I saw a Torx bit. There's all different kinds, so it takes about 5 different bits to even get these boards off. My brother-in-law Joe, he's going to be helping me today, and he's pretty good help. He's already started, and we're taking this top deck board off. We took a look at this before we started this project, and this framing underneath here is solid. So everything feels pretty good there. You will see that there's some screws that are broken off or left, or there's holes, not a big deal. But what prompted this, not only does this deck need a little loving, but we've got, when they went to change the pool liner, these guys came in and just hacked the ends off these things and said, we can't do this with this stuff in the way. So they just chopped it off. And I need to come in and I want to straighten these out. So I'll find a consistent measuring point and I'll measure over. And I'm actually going to mark each one of these and I'm going to cut them. And then we can come in and start running our decking. My intentions will be to put kind of like a face board on here, and then when we run our decking, I'll leave the full board out here so it's as strong as possible, and then I'll work my way back. Another thing that I found, and I've seen YouTubes and all that stuff, guys will say, well, you need to space your deck boards, and then, you know, those deck boards, treated boards, I've seen them shrink and I've seen them grow. So I tend to lean towards, you know what, bigger spaces. I've put decks in, and I've had, you know, I'll show another video where we're going to have to cut grooves in the deck, and that's just miserable on your hands and knees. So with this one, we're going to do nice 1/4 inch gaps all the way through, but we'll start at the pool edge and we'll work back. And if there happens to be a sliver back here, not a big deal. I don't think this deck is necessarily squared up with anything, so we're probably going to have some cutoffs anyways. I'd rather them be hidden kind of under the railing system. So we'll get rolling on this. I'm at our first bay. Joe's got all these removed except for this one board. This allows me just a little bit more comfort while I'm cutting. So I'm going to measure back. These boards out at the edge of the railing are actually in pretty good shape. So I'm just going to leave them. That's so much work notching and cutting. It just doesn't make sense. You know, the whole deck is going to fail probably before those do. So we're going to leave them in there. But I do want a consistent measurement. So I'll come to the first full stud that I have, floor joist that is. And I'm just going to measure out here. I think they really want these. I'm going to try to get it close to the edge of the pool. So I'll go 80, let's go 81 inches. 81 inches puts me pretty darn close. And that gave them enough room to actually do what they did. So then let's come over here. And for every bay, this measurement's going to be different. So on this one, it's an angled one, so I'm not worried about that. Okay? I want to go with the straight bays for now. So I'll run right along here, and I'm going to mark 81 inches. Now, I understand I'm taking a little bit off, but remember we're going to put a rim board here. So I'll be another 1.5 inches wide, which puts me right basically where they felt they needed to cut us back. To get this cut, I'll go ahead and chalk a line or even use a level, and we'll get a straight edge and we'll actually cut past. We'll go ahead and chalk this, I guess, to get our line to cut these. We'll start going through each one of these and getting them cut. Now I'm eyeballing over the pool edge. On this one, it's actually 82 inches. And that's okay. I just want to make them consistent. So that'll be right there. And then this one. You hold my tape there, Joe? Thanks. Just tip it up on me. Okay. Thank you. It's super important when you pull your measurements that you pull the same measurement. Otherwise, when you stick your boards in here, they're not going to line up with the boards at the end of the deck. So that's one thing that's why we're pulling these measurements. Okay. All right, I got the top lines on here marked. I'm going to come through the circular saw and just hit them real fast off the top. That'll take 2 inches of cut out of my cut. And it'll also give me a good straight line coming down, and I'll square these and start cutting them off. And until these boards come off, I can't cut full depth, so I'll wait. And I can start sawzalling these. So you guys know this is a Milwaukee Sawzall blade. If I'm cutting steel, I don't care if it's an I-beam, I like using the Milwaukee torch. And this is actually the Milwaukee axe. And I just melted that off, but you saw that thing goes through these things like butter. You're not sitting there beating yourself to death with a Harbor Freight blade. The way this pool's set up, since we're cutting it with the pool, the board and the angles aren't going to line up like you'd want. The center piece where these two angles would come together is like out here somewhere. So I'm going to take this board and I'm cutting it flat, and I'm just going to square, and I'm just going to run it past, and the other board will die into it. And I can show you a little better what that's going to look like afterwards. But right now I'm going to tack this board on. Get these tacked on with the air nailer, and then we'll come through and screw them on. We got these screws from Jake's Sales. These are a number 10, so it's a little bit thicker of a screw. I don't remember. Yeah, these are 3.5 inches long. Since we're doing a remodel here, some of these screws could potentially go into the same holes. Let's say these existing screws are 2 inches long. I still want another 1.5 inches of good grabbing power, because some of these holes, they start kind of wallering out over time. So we're going to use these big boys and put this deck back together. Slip a cover underneath this thing, so wherever these joists are, I'm just cutting a little bit more out of them so they have a little bit more space to tuck their tarp underneath it over for the winter, which I did right here. I think I'll cut my verticals and then I'll chop off what I need. So the lines actually cross on this joist, so I should be able to work a better angle on it. Go. We got our straight cuts for the face board, and then we angle it back to allow for tarping. That's still going to be tight for a tarp, but it will be possible. Going off the existing framing, I've got this 3.5-inch board worked pretty good. What I did was I actually kind of moon cut right over this piece right here, because you don't want a kid like stepping off here and getting his foot caught in there. When I look at this one, let's see here. With a tape measure, if I were to put a 3.5-inch board, that just about works. I still think I need to rip it down a little bit, but I'll have to kind of moon cut this one a little bit up to 2.5 inches. So I'll do that all the way around here so it kind of looks nice. Our chop saw set up, and we've got it set up kind of like a jig. So these are 12-foot boards. Our intentions are to cut them to 6 foot and start laying them on the deck, and then we'll do one clean cut at a time just because the angles are a little funny on this deck. We've got it formed as a jig, so as soon as you set a board on here, it hits this edge, and then from the saw, Joe, could you pull this saw blade down just so we can demonstrate this one more time? From the saw blade, you got 6 foot, so we'll be 6 and 6. So Joe's going to start stacking these, and he's going to cut the first 14 of them, and then we'll put those down, and then we'll go to the next step. We'll work our way across. This is one of our face boards that we've been putting on. I need to cut these down so that they stay above the pool deck, or the pool edge. I need to cut them down to where I'm only leaving about 2 5/8 in this case. So I'll go ahead and rip this board completely down. Then I've got a mark right here where these corner guards are, is what I'll call them, where it goes even higher. And in that case, at that point, I'm only saving about 1 5/8. And that way they all look the same across the pool when we're done. So there's 1 5/8. So I'm going to have 2 lines run through here. This one here is going to basically run right there. And then what will happen is that'll die off right about there. And then we'll have another line that's coming through here. A little hard to understand, but we're going to try to get it all in one. So on this end, I'll do the same thing. I'll mark, okay, guess I could do it with my square. I'll do 1 5/8. Do 1 5/8. Let's connect these two. That gets us close. And our line is going to be right in here. I need to remember to keep 2 5/8, which is pretty. Let's see if that's pretty. Whoop. Okay, let's set this down. Yeah, that's going to be. That might actually work. Let's see. Yeah, that's 2.5. That's not going to work for me. So I'll continue to mark these out. Take my tape measure. So that'll be a chalk line right there. And then right through here, this will be my curve as I raise that cut up. So we'll go from here to here. I'll go ahead and chalk this line. Get it. So now you can start to see it where this whole board will be cut off right here, and then right here we'll hump up just for the corner covers of the pool. I'll nibble these 2 ends off here. To about there, and I'll finish with the Sawzall to curve it. pretty well got it figured out that this is something like a 12-degree angle, so I've already beveled the edges on these. Joe and I have our first deck board down. We used a 2x4 as a spacer just to hold it up there, so we have the identical overlapped. And then we're going to take these 1/4-inch spacers and we're going to set them basically in between each board. We put a We put a screw in this board just so it won't twist or turn, and we're just going to set these in and slide the next board in. And then we're going to do that again and again until we run out of spacers. When we run out of spacers, I'll put another screw down. So let's do another one here, Joe. And what's happening here is these will be all spaced, and then what I'll do is I'll chalk a line and we'll basically cut this. Now I have a track saw, so I'll show you how to use that. We'll run the track saw over this. These are good, and we can both go one more. Excellent. Checking the lumber, because lumber, the curve of the grain, you always want that curve kind of pointed down, because what's going to happen, the boards are going to want to straighten out over time. So you want that curve pointed up. So I'm checking the ends of these boards, making sure they're laid the right way, and then we'll screw all these down. So we are in a spot now, Joe, where I can actually set this last spacer on here. I'm going to mark it. And I'll let you mark yours over there. We'll screw this down, and then we can actually cut these. It's a little bit more work to do it this way, but you're almost guaranteed to have a nice straight line. So we'll screw these in, then we're going to pull the screws out. I'm not putting double screws and all that, just one screw in each board, all the way across. Once we get these down, we'll stack them up, kind of almost numbered. We'll put it back down once we trace the other two sides. That gives us all of our 6-foot boards. Now we're going to move into the 8s, which Joe's already counted out. You can see they're getting wider now. And we'll be able to, again, just chalk right through this. All right, Joe, let's do the 8s on all we got spacers. Plastic edges, that is literally your line. That's what it's going to be. So we're going to have a janky cut at the end. That's good. Alright, so I'm right where I want to be. We got the middle in and cut. What we decided not to do was lift it. We didn't lift it back up. We left it down. It's screwed in place. We felt good with that. So then we took the actually the boards over here, and we set them down. And if you walk over to this railing, you'll see that all we did was align them with the inside edge. And then out here, we're going to actually just cut a straight line of these deck boards so that looks real nice. But we set these down, and you can see that edge, it's real nice and crispy. So we used spacers, screwed them down. We'll show you our process here on the next bay now that we kind of have an idea what we're doing. But man, it went just like super well. So excited to do the next, really 2.5 bays. We're moving the ladder from that area over there. You can kind of see the deck board that had the holes in it. The ladder was just screwed to the deck boards, and so that ladder was constantly kind of a problem and a little loose. And you know how kids are, they spend a lot of time on the ladder. So we're going to move it over here out of the way, so hopefully the kids are running and jumping through here and we have some space where we don't have to get wet and splashed on. I'm going to put some blocking underneath this deck board here. I pulled it up. I'm going to go ahead and run just some 2x4s through here, and that'll give us a little bit more strength when we tie the ladder in. So here's the process that we came up with. We've got these boards laid out. We're eyeballing these so these line up really well with the others, and then we're using our 1/4 inch spacers on the opposite side. Then we're setting our track saw on here, and we're cutting through these and letting these boards drop. Now it's binding just a little bit, but it's leaving us a really nice cut that you can see there. Drill bits right here, and they're sized a little bit smaller than these number 10 screws, and I'm going through and I'm pre-drilling my holes, especially on the corners, because I don't want to have any problems with the board splitting out. So all I'm doing is coming in and I'm dropped my screw there. Come here. All right, I'm just coming in about 3/4 of an inch in and 3/4 of an inch up, and I'm drilling a hole. Goes in nice and fast. And then we can just fill the holes with the screws. This board right here is not completely lined up. You can see these are off a little bit. So I'll just nudge that over because they're not screwed down yet. Clean it up a little bit. See if I can do it with my speed square. Yeah. Then when we're done pre-drilling, just drive the screws in. There, you can stop. Pre-drilling these makes it easier to put these screws in, but it's also greatly reducing the like splinters that come up around the screws. So I've been very happy with these bits. Just keep walking them like that one's done. So now I can move it over here, push these all together, and start screwing them together. We got a breakdown in the backyard.
Oh yeah, look at those muscles.
We're wrapping up for today. It's about 8:30. It's getting dark, getting kind of hard to see the cuts and the lines. We've got just a couple little pieces to cut in for transitions right through here along the edges, and then just a little bit to do right around the gate, but we're getting darn close to finishing up. So we'll wrap it up tomorrow, and hopefully the kids can go swimming. Good morning, everybody. We're going through and we're putting in our filler pieces that match up with the existing deck. You can see over here, right now we've got one that's going to have a little bit of a thin sliver that opens up and then actually notches around this pole, and then it'll have an angle cut at the end. So that's what this board is right here. That's it, Joe. I'll hold my middle. We're putting the final touches on the deck here. The last one we're putting in is our, what I would call kind of like our filler board, and we saved it because, you know, if you need a full board, let's use full boards, and now we can start ripping them down, and we're able to get a couple of those out of one board. This board's already been cut. We'll take another piece out of it, save on the lumber. All I'm doing is making sure that these ends match real good. So this measurement was 2 7/8, and then over here it actually grows just a little bit because things are slightly off. That'll be like 3 1/4, so 3/8 of an inch, whatever that ends up being. So it's not real bad, but it's filling in really nicely. So I've got this track saw, and I've marked the 2 spots I want, and all you do is just set the edge of your track right with your line. So I'm going to line that up right there. Now you got to remember the kerf of your blade. So since this is the side I'm discarding, I can actually put it right with the edge, and so my blade will take some of that discard. If it was on this side, then I would leave myself maybe a little gap for my saw blade, but that's not the case going this direction. Okay. And so I've got 2 little lines. I'm just lining up this end, confirm this end. And this Festool's track has got a non-slip on it that almost like a foam that grabs the wood underneath it, so you really don't have to hold it as long as you keep your track clean. Some of this sawdust can cause some friction. And then I don't know if you can look down this thing, but that is so straight with that Festool. Now I've got the width of this where I want it, but I've still got to put an angle cut on this. So since I went with my cut here and then did a kind of a custom angle over to the existing lumber, I'll go ahead and just overlap these and make myself a good mark so that this is a clean connection. This is such a small cut, I'll just use a circular saw. There you have it. When I'm setting a board, I try to drill a vertical screw before I try to do my angled screws. So I'll catch this one. I want to make sure the spacing's pretty decent here, and it looks like it is. So now I can drop a screw in here. And I'll do just one for now. And that allows me to put these screws in. Yep. So I go opposites. You get my side, I'll get yours. I just got this bull nose on this staircase. It matches the overhang of the other stairs. Since we chose to save some of the lumber on this, to save on some money, time, labor, all that stuff, you can see that we got some old boards here, and one of them chipped right here. And an old timer once told me, he said the only difference between you and a professional is a professional knows how to hide his mistakes. So in this case, what we've got is we do have this little gap here that broke off from the other board. I'm going to put a little, like a little, I don't know what you want to call it, but kind of like a, I don't even know. I'm going to put a block of wood here is basically what I'm going to do. We're going to block it, but it'll look kind of nice. You know, a little molding, maybe we'll call it, right around here. So I'm going to measure here. I don't need molding on that side, but I'll put it there just so it looks nice. So I'll come in here and I'll say that I want that to be 7 inches tall, and we'll just 45 it down so it doesn't hold water, and you'll never know. Two matching blocks. Here's the ladder that we use. We've already measured the distance, and we know that they're supposed to be 20 and a half inches apart. We'll check them one more time. I believe that's about right. That's what they're showing here. They do move a little bit. I've got a bit here that should be just perfect so that these slide in, stay nice and snug, and then we can screw these top caps on. So I'm measuring the ladder right here at this point, and it's showing me about 20 and an eighth inch. I think I'm going to go 20 and a half just so that it opens slightly when it goes up. All right, ladder framing 7 to 10 and a half inches from face of top deck board. So center would be approximately 9 inches from top deck board, which would put me pretty much center of this framing here. Now I also know that my ladder supports are between these two joists. So I just made a mark here. So I'm working within here on this board, and I need to come in 9 inches. So we'll give them a little space. I honestly think it'd probably be good if we just centered the ladder in this 4-foot section. So if we go 2 foot there, 20 and a half divided by 2 is 10 and a quarter. Whoops, that's 24. So let's go 24 here. So that's going to be 10 and a quarter this way, and 20 and a half this way. And that should be okay. I know that I've got a vertical framing right here that I do not want to drill through, so everything's going to move over a full inch. All right, and we'll go 20 and a half from that mark. Circle those. Now we'll come out 9 inches. Hole number 1. 9 inches, hole number 2. I know that I'm going through a deck board, which is 1 1/4, plus a 2x4, which is 1.5 inches. So that's about 3 3/4. So we should be good as long as I get the bit down to this first red line. Oh boy, this is an eater. You can see how wet those deck boards are. So I'll come through here, just cut these off. Now remember, we've got, I'd be more particular, but we've got a cap that's going to come over this, so you won't see any of this. I really don't want to replace this board, so we'll go ahead and just double check my 20 and a half. Looks good. Let's sit her down and let this big dog eat. Ooh. Looked like you weren't pushing, but you were pushing. Project's complete. Thank you for watching today. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit those notifications for more video content. Thank you.